something that's the honest to God's truth. If it had not been for the Lord who is on your side, Satan would have destroyed you already.
That's right. That's right.
He would have taken you out. If it had not been for the Lord, He would have found a way to get rid of you. I'm sure some of you in here have experienced this. There will be people who will rise up and begin to speak all manner of evil against you and say bad things about you and start rumors on you. And if it had not been for the Lord who preserved you, that could have totally destroyed you.
That's right.
But because of God on our side, these things can't destroy us. But it don't just stop there, does it? He goes on. After he said all that, then the waters had overwhelmed us. The stream had gone over our soul. The proud waters had gone over our soul. He's not talking about drowning. He's not talking about getting in the river. This is a spiritual thing. He's talking about your soul. If it had not been on the Lord, for the Lord who was on your side, who was protecting you and keeping you and stopping these things from tearing you down, your soul would have been destroyed. I know of Christians who have just given up and quit because people talked about them, because people put them down, because people spread rumors about them, because of things like that, because they didn't have enough trust in the Lord to stand up against it and allow the Lord to fight for them. It is the Lord who is on our side. It is the Lord who will fight for us against anything that can come against us. We can go back to the Psalm, and he talks about all these different kinds of things that God won't allow to happen to you. Well, we go here, and he talks about men rising up against you, and about the powers that try to destroy your soul. God will take care of you. God will keep you. God will preserve you. God will not let your soul be destroyed if you're looking to God. Here's what we do a lot of time when somebody says something about us. Well, I'm going to get even with them. I got some dirt on them and everybody's going to know it. I know how I can get them. And we come up with all these things. And listen, here's how human beings are. Somebody says something untrue about you, and it gets spread around a little bit, and it gets back to you. Here's what you do. Well, let me tell you what they did. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a whole lot worse than what they said you did. Mm-hmm. And that's how we are. But we don't have to be that way because we have a God who fights for us. If we keep trusting in God, if we keep looking unto God, if we keep standing right and walking right, God will overcome all those things. God will deliver us safely. God will bring us through it, and God will bring us out of it. But it's all that, it all starts with looking to God. And I said this, but I'm going to say it again. I truly believe. And you may think otherwise, and that's fine. I can't give you exactly chapter and verse for this. I truly believe every decision you make should be run by God before you make it. Mm-hmm. Now, not necessarily what socks you wear, or you know what I'm talking about, life decisions, choices. I've heard a lot of people talk about buying cars, and they won't buy a car unless they go to God first. Mm-hmm. Because I've talked to people who said they bought a car because they liked that car and it looked good, and you know, when the people see me wheeling around in this, man, they're going to think I'm something. And they got the car that lasted a couple of weeks and broke down. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't go to God for stuff like that. Why not?
That's right.
Why not? He's your Father.
That's right.
He cares about you. Mm-hmm. If you're a teenage boy and you're going to go buy a car, don't you think Dad's going to be there looking it over, mm-hmm. checking it out, telling you whether this is a good buy or not a good buy? He's our Father. He cares. It matters to him. All the scriptures I've given you the last couple of weeks, and amongst all those are, you shall prosper if you're a child of God and you're living the right way. Well, buying a junker and it breaking down on you and then you being out the money and the car is not prospering. That's not how God wants his children to live. So if we would go to God for things, and I'm just using a car as an example, but there's so many things that we need to, a job. I think it's crucial to ask God Is this the place you would have me to be? Is this what you want me to do? Or do you have something else? Because I believe that on your job, that's your mission field. And maybe that's not the mission field God wants you in. Maybe He wants you in a different mission field. So I believe it's important that we seek God for these things. We're going to go back to Romans. And I'm going to guarantee you something. If we do, as I preached this morning, and we keep that word in our hearts and in our minds, and we live by that word, and if we do, as I read in that first psalm, we look unto God, and we get direction from God, all these things I've already said to you are going to happen. But it goes beyond that. In Romans again, chapter 8, verse 31, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us?
That's right.
How many of us live that way? We need to live that way. We need to have that attitude. We need to have that belief. We need to have that conviction. If God is on my side, who can be against me? They can try, but they won't be successful. They cannot succeed. What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? If God was willing to send his son to go through what he went through, suffer what he suffered, put up with what he put up with, end up on that cross in shame and in agony. If God was willing to send him to go through all that for you, it was for you. Do you think there's anything he won't do for you? That's the ultimate. That's as far as you can go, to give his own son for you. And we're being asked a question here. If God would do that, how will he not also do these other things for us?
Amen. Amen.
And here's what I want to get to. You know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. Everybody sitting here knows it, at least here. We got to get it down to here. And we got to begin to walk in it. We got to begin to live it. We got to begin to carry ourselves in that manner, present ourselves in that manner, fully convinced and fully persuaded in our own mind. This is a fact. This is so. This is what God said. And therefore, nothing can change it. He goes on. Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It is God that justifieth. Who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that died, yea, rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of God, who also maketh intercession for us. God is up there, and Christ is up there, pleading on your behalf, making intercession on your behalf for the things that we focus here. And why is that so important? Why is that so necessary? Because Christ knows what it is to be a human being. Christ knows how you feel. Christ knows when you're confused. Christ knows when you're hurt. Christ knows when you're don't know which way to go and what to do. Christ knows all that. And that's why it's so great. The scripture that says we don't have a high priest that can't be touched by our infirmities, but we do have a high priest that can be touched by our infirmities. The things we go through touch the heart of Christ because he has experienced it and he understands it and he's making intercession for us. He's going to God on our behalf. And you can agree with me or disagree with me. That's entirely up to you. I've heard it said that the intercession is for your salvation. I don't think it's just for your salvation, or it wouldn't be put in this place in the scriptures. It's for your well-being. It's for your protection. It's for your empowerment. It's for every aspect of your Christian life. Paul just asked the question, how will he not freely give us all things? He goes on and says, Christ is there interceding for us. And you know, I know you know, that if he would do that for you,
That's right.
is there anything he wouldn't do for you? Then let's live like it. We need to start living like it. We need to start acting like it. We need to start talking like it. I don't want to go deep into this. But your own words can bless you or curse you.
That's right. That's what
We don't have time to get way deep into it.
That's what it says.
But I want to give you an example. My stomach's killing me, and it's been killing me for a couple days. I know God's going to heal it. It's slowly getting better. I can feel it getting better right now. But I knew that, and I said that. But suppose I had said, I don't know. I'm probably going to have this for a week. I think that would have stayed the hand of God.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And we do things like that in our life. I'm never going to have anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to get out of this hole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to be able to do that. I can do all things through
Amen.
Christ.
That's right. That's what it says.
We stop the hand of God.
That's right.
That's not faith when we say, I can't do this and I can't do that. That's not faith when I say, well, I hope so. I know God would do it for them, but I ain't too sure he'd do it for me. We could do all those kind of things, and that stops the hand of God. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been giving you some very plain scripture. Where God said, I will. I will. I will.
That's right.
If you turn the key, if you know the key, and some of the keys we've talked about, you've got to know that word, you've got to live that word, you've got to understand that word, you've got to be in that word, you've got to look to God, you've got to trust the Holy Spirit of God that indwells you to be the leader. Listen to what He has to say. Let Him direct your path. Learn to know the difference between your voice and God's voice. Here's another one. Learn to know the difference between God's voice and the pastor's voice. Or that person you like or you look up to or whatever. Learn to know that not every door that opens goes to a good place. So many times, and that one really, it just gets all over me. That one really bothers me. Well, it had to be God because everything just fell right in place. It had to be God because the door just opened. That don't mean it's God. You better check with God before you step through. I'm going to go on here. Where did I start? It is Christ that died, yea, rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of God, who also maketh intercession for us. And who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Just stop. Just stop a minute. Put this together. Try to meld this together in your mind. If God be for us, who can be against us? Because God was willing to give His only Son to go through everything He went through for me. And if He was willing to do that for me, I know He'll do these other things for me. And not only that, Christ is sitting there beside Him, pleading on my behalf to get these things. And who can separate me from the love of Christ? Put that all together and let it sink in and think about it. That's an amazing statement. Sometimes this stuff just goes, and we don't reach up and get a hold of it. You need to get a hold of some of this stuff and understand, and yes, I'm going to repeat myself, if God is for you, who can be against you? Because you know He gave His most precious gift so that you could have salvation, so that you could be free, so that you could escape hell. He allowed His only begotten Son to suffer and go through everything He went through for you. And you know that if He's going to do that, there ain't nothing He won't do for you. And not only that, that one that He gave, that was willing to be given, that was willing to come, that was willing to suffer, that was willing to die, sits there with God and talks on your behalf. And not only that, because of what we are, and we don't even know sometimes what's best for us, He's indwelled us so that from the inside He can speak and know what to say. and know what is the will of God. All right, maybe it's not getting to you like it's getting to me, but that's an amazing statement.
Amen.
That's an amazing thing. Listen, this God isn't like a king on a throne, isn't like a president, isn't like anything you can comprehend. But try to comprehend who this is we're talking about that would do that for this. Think about it. How can you not be victorious
That's right.
with all this on your side? There's only one thing that stops you from being victorious. Right here.
That's right.
No,
Amen.
not me for you. Everybody do this. I can be your thorn in the flesh, but I can't stop you from being victorious.
That's right.
How can you not? How can you not? I'm going to tell you why we're not. There's people sitting here who never taught that. There was people sitting here who never thought that. Because, as I started out saying, a lot of us grew up believing all you ever have to do, you say the prayer one time. You be faithful to go to church, and you pay your tithes. You be nice to people, you don't cuss. You don't kick dogs. You don't do this and you don't do that. And then all of it's yours. But that's not what the book says. And that's why a lot of us have lived like we have lived. We don't have to. Because God has given us the keys to open up all the promises. To open up everything that He has. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation? You know what tribulation is? The meaning of that word? Pressure. That's what that word means in this circumstance. Pressure and affliction. Burdens. Trouble. Everybody here has probably been in one of those. Did it make God stop loving you? Did it make Christ stop interceding for you? Then how come in those things we were not victorious? Because we didn't use the key. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. Shall tribulation or distress? The distress is kind of the same. It means calamity or anguish or persecution, which means to be pressed or pressured, or famine or nakedness or peril or sword. Listen, I'm going to read that again. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword or not having a job or not having a good car or my family being mad at me or not having enough money in the bank? Or can any of that separate you from Christ?
No.
If none of that can separate you from Christ, then God said He'll take care of it, did He not?
That's right.
He won't let you be destroyed. He won't let you be vanquished. He will keep your feet. He will not let you be smitten. He will not let men rise up against you. And He has promised that. But the reason we have these situations and circumstances and problems and troubles is because we have not learned to look fully to God, to trust fully in God, to depend totally on God. And until we get it, we're going to keep going through this stuff. Now, I'm not telling you when you start doing that, problems ain't going to come. Because they will. The Bible promises you that too. Jesus said in this life you will have tribulation. But He said something after that. Rejoice. Because I overcame it. Now I'm making intercession for you. And you're going to overcome it.
That's right. Amen.
If you trust me.
That's right.
If you believe me.
Right.
And I'll guarantee you, if you're doing that, then you can claim that other promise. All things work together for good. To them that love the Lord. But it all goes back to that starting point. If your starting point isn't right, you're not going to get there. You've got to be looking to God, trusting in God, dependent on God. It's telling us here how much He loves us, what He did for us to show His love. and what Christ did for us to show his love. And now that Christ makes intercession for us, and he's saying that he's sitting there making separation for us, therefore,